year was 1969. A stifling, late summer heat clung to Pasadena, California, a prelude to the terrifying events about to unfold. In a modest, Spanish-style home, the Hernandez family huddled, their faces etched with a fear that transcended the usual anxieties of life. Their son, Juan, a boy barely into his teens, was tormented. He claimed the voices were constant now, insidious whispers that promised pain and damnation. They had begun after he'd succumbed to temptation, stealing a silver necklace from a gypsy's wagon that had passed through their neighborhood. Though fear had driven him to return the necklace, it was as if the theft had opened a doorway to something ancient and malevolent. The necklace was gone now, but the voices lingered, growing louder with each passing day, each one a chilling promise of torment. Desperate, they sought help from a local medium, a young woman named Shaun San Dena. Her reputation was that of a rising star in the occult circles of Southern California. She possessed a serene demeanor, a stark contrast to the terror that was rapidly consuming the Hernandez family. San Dena, with her piercing eyes and a knowledge of arcane rituals far beyond her years, listened to their desperate pleas. She agreed to perform a seance, hoping to confront whatever entity was preying on Juan. The night of the seance was heavy with foreboding. The air in the Hernandez living room hung thick and still, charged with an unseen tension. Shadows danced in the corners of the room as San Dena began her incantations. The room grew colder, the temperature dropping to an unnatural level as she delved deeper into the ritual. The candles flickered wildly, casting grotesque shapes upon the walls. Juan began to convulse, his body trembling violently as he screamed in a voice that was not his own. Suddenly, an invisible force slammed into the small gathering. Furniture crashed against the walls, the floorboards creaked as if something was dragging across the room. The Hernandez family could only watch, paralyzed with terror, as their son was pulled away, his screams echoing briefly before abruptly ending. The room was left in a deafening silence, the air thick with an evil presence that had vanished as quickly as it had appeared. Juan was gone, dragged to a hell that no mortal should ever know. San Dena, shaken but resolute, vowed to confront the demon responsible for this horror one day, to stop it from claiming more victims. Years melted into decades. The late 2000s saw the bright, sun-drenched streets of Los Angeles bustling with life, seemingly a world away from the nightmare of the past. Christine Brown, a bank loan officer, was chasing the American dream with a tenacity that bordered on obsession. Her ambition was a sharp contrast to her gentle nature, and she yearned for the coveted promotion to assistant branch manager. Her colleague, Stu Rubin, was her direct competition, a rival she considered more of an annoyance than a true threat. Jim Jacks, their stern and somewhat aloof boss, had made it clear that the promotion would go to whoever demonstrated the ability to make the tough decisions, regardless of sentimentality. This was a challenge to her empathetic nature, a test of will that would soon plunge her into unimaginable terror. One fateful afternoon, Sylvia Ganush, a disheveled and elderly woman of European Roma descent, shuffled into Christine's office. Ganush's face was a roadmap of hardship, her eyes holding a mixture of pleading and a simmering resentment. She was desperate, her hands trembling as she begged Christine for a third extension on her mortgage. Her pleas were for the chance to keep her family home, the place where her memories, her life, resided. Christine, pressured by her boss's admonition and her own burning ambition, was unmoved. Her refusal was polite but firm. She couldn't afford any slip-ups now. Her boss' words about the necessity for tough decisions echoed in her mind. Ganush's reaction was swift and ferocious. The old woman's gentle demeanor vanished, and in its place emerged an unrestrained, terrifying rage. She cursed Christine, her words laced with ancient fury, promising that Christine would soon experience suffering beyond her wildest nightmares. Security guards escorted the distraught woman out of the bank, her words hanging heavy in the air like a poison. But this was not the end of the encounter. That evening, as Christine walked through the dimly lit bank parking garage, she was confronted by Ganush, who had been waiting for her. The old woman attacked with unexpected strength, her grip like iron as she tried to force Christine to kneel before her. The fight was savage and brutal. Ganush, in her wild desperation, clawed at Christine, managing to rip a button from her coat. The look of triumph on Ganush's face was chilling as she cursed the button, spitting venomous words onto the fabric before handing it back to Christine. "You will come begging to me," she cackled, her voice a raspy whisper filled with malevolence. Christine tried to convince herself that it was just the ravings of a distraught old woman. Still, a seed of unease was planted in her heart. The following days became a slow descent into madness. The cursed button weighed heavy in her pocket, a constant, tangible reminder of the encounter with Ganush. Christine, seeking some form of explanation, consulted a fortune teller named Ram Jas. His dimly lit shop was filled with strange artifacts and an air of ancient secrets. Jas, a man with eyes that seemed to peer into the depths of her soul, listened intently as Christine recounted her ordeal. His face grew grim as he told her the truth. A dark spirit was now haunting her. A very specific dark spirit, known only as the Lamia. He explained that the curse attached to the button would now draw the demonic entity to her, that her days were now numbered. The entity's presence manifested with increasing intensity. At home, she was tormented by inexplicable noises and shadows lurking at the edge of her vision. Her sleep became a playground for nightmares. Even at work, she was not safe. Grotesque hallucinations of Ganush appeared before her, her features distorted in a mask of rage and hatred. A sudden, violent nosebleed sent her reeling, and she barely managed to escape the office before she collapsed. The world around Christine was beginning to crumble. Even in her moments of lucidity, there was the looming dread that something unspeakable was clawing its way into her life. Her career was also beginning to suffer. Stu, smelling weakness, seized the opportunity. He callously stole a file from her desk, hoping to sabotage her promotion and steal it for himself. Christine's world was spiraling out of control. She desperately decided to beg for forgiveness, hoping to find a way to break the curse. She went to Ganush's home, only to discover that the old woman had recently died. The news felt like a cold hand gripping her heart. Christine, consumed by panic, made her way to Ganush's funeral, hoping to find some way to communicate and put an end to the torment. But she was met with hostility. Ganush's granddaughter, her face twisted with anger, confronted Christine, accusing her of causing her grandmother's death. She spat out a warning, telling her that she deserved the fate that awaited her. Returning to Ram Jas, Christine's fear reached a fever pitch. Jas explained that the curse was irreversible, the button a physical conduit to a malevolent force. He revealed the terrifying truth about the Lamia, a demon that would torment her for 3 days before dragging her to hell. He offered one desperate solution. A sacrifice might appease the Lamia. She must surrender something of value, a life for a life to satisfy the hunger of the demon. Christine, torn by fear and desperation, reluctantly sacrificed her kitten, the animal's innocent life offered up to the darkness, hoping that the sacrifice would be enough to save her. She felt a deep sense of guilt, but the terrifying truth of the demonic curse pushed that feeling to the recesses of her mind. But her ordeal did not end there. She went to dinner at her boyfriend Clay Dalton's parents', only to experience horrifying hallucinations. Grotesque figures appeared around her, their faces distorted, their eyes burning with malevolence. Each one whispered threats, promising endless pain, the Lamia's hand gripping at her mind with increasing intensity. The Lamia was not satisfied with the sacrifice. It was growing more powerful and more demanding. Christine, her patience snapped, angrily returned to Ram Jas' shop. Her fear was now giving way to a desperate, enraged defiance. This was her life, her soul, that was being toyed with, and she would not let this ancient evil simply take it from her. Jas, seeing her rage, suggested a more potent solution. Shaun San Dena, the same medium who had confronted the demon in Pasadena many years ago. The cost was steep, $10,000, but Clay, fueled by his love and desperation for Christine, paid it without hesitation. They met San Dena in a desolate, old warehouse. San Dena, now an older woman, but with the same piercing eyes, saw the fear in Christine's eyes, and a flash of recognition for the demon she had been hoping to confront once more. San Dena prepared a ritual, an elaborate seance intended to trap the Lamia in a goat. The plan was simple: trap the demon in an animal, and then destroy it, hoping that this would end Christine's torment. The ritual began with the same sense of dread that had filled the Hernandez living room so many years ago. San Dena and her assistant, their faces grim and focused, began their incantations. The room pulsed with an unholy energy. The goat bleated in terror, sensing the approach of something ancient and vile. The Lamia descended upon them, the air around Christine thick with its presence. The demon thrashed and howled, its power pushing against their defenses. Christine felt an invisible weight pressing on her soul, the chilling whisper of the demon slithering into her mind. She fought back, her own willpower a desperate shield against the demonic tide, but it was not enough. The Lamia suddenly possessed her, forcing her to turn on her allies. The Lamia used her body to attack the assistant, pushing them into the ritual circle. San Dena moved quickly, her years of experience coming into play. She managed to banish the Lamia from Christine's body with a final desperate move. But it had taken its toll, and San Dena collapsed soon after, her life given to banishing the demon. The Lamia had been pushed back, but not destroyed. The demonic curse lingered, as malevolent as ever. Jas, after witnessing the ordeal, sealed the button in an envelope, a move that held a small sense of relief. He explained to Christine that she could remove the curse by giving the button to another person, thus transferring the burden onto someone else. The choice was brutal. She would be choosing her own life over another's, and that truth cut deep into her soul. Christine spent a restless night, tormented by the implications of Jas' words. She thought about Stu, her obnoxious colleague, about his blatant theft of her file. It was then she decided what to do. The following morning, Christine called Stu, summoning him to an all-night diner. She revealed that she knew about his theft, demanding that he meet her to discuss his betrayal. The plan was set. She would give Stu the cursed button, sacrificing him for her own life. Stu arrived at the diner, a picture of shame and fear. He fell to his knees, begging Christine not to tell Jim Jacks about his actions. He was desperate, terrified of the consequences. Stu's plea, his honest fear, caused something inside Christine to break. A wave of sympathy washed over her, a sudden realization that she could not inflict such torment on another human being, even one as irritating as Stu. She could not condemn someone to the living hell she was trapped in. She could not pass on the curse. So she went back to Jas and learned that the curse could be given to the dead. Christine decided on a desperate course of action. She was to offer the curse to Ganush, hoping the demon's wrath would be sated on her final resting place. Christine went to the cemetery, to Ganush's grave. She dug furiously, the rain pouring down, turning the freshly turned earth to mud. The graveyard was a sea of shadows. Her heart hammered as she wrestled the casket open and shoved the envelope containing the cursed button into the gaping maw of the corpse. The earth began to tremble beneath her feet. A sudden downpour turned the grave into a muddy trap. Christine nearly slipped into the grave with the corpse, the cold, dead hand of Ganush reaching up as if to pull her into the depths with her. In a final, desperate move, Christine managed to scramble out of the grave and out of the graveyard. Exhausted and battered, Christine returned home. For the first time in days, she felt a sense of relief, a fragile hope that the nightmare was finally over. She received a call from Jim Jacks, her boss, who informed her that Stu had been fired for his theft, and that she was finally being promoted. Everything she had fought for was now hers. She packed her bags, getting ready to meet Clay at Union Station for a trip. She had no idea, as she prepared, of the horror that awaited her. Clay had planned a surprise, a proposal that would mark the beginning of their future together. But as they waited at the station, Clay handed Christine an envelope he'd found in his car. It was an identical one to the one she had put in Ganush's mouth. Inside was her cursed coat button. In her desperation, she had confused the cursed envelope with the one containing a rare coin that she had gifted to Clay. The realization hit Christine like a physical blow, each beat of her heart a terrified drum. Her world spun, the horror of her situation crashing around her. The demon had not been fooled. The Lamia had been waiting for the moment when her guard would be down. As she stumbled back, her eyes wide with terror, the ground beneath her feet cracked open. Demonic hands clawed their way out of the earth, their grip like iron as they dragged her down into the depths of hell, the screams of terror cut off. The bustling station, the happy crowd, all faded away as she was pulled into the abyss. Clay stood there, helpless, his face a picture of pure shock and terror as he watched the woman he loved vanish into the abyss. The Lamia had claimed its prize. The curse had been fulfilled, and the streets of Los Angeles, though now brighter than before, had now become a little bit darker. The story of Christine Brown and the cursed button became a whispered tale, a warning about the ancient evils that lurk in the shadows, waiting to claim their next victim.